Today we're going to be covering 3 Dynasty stashes that you can probably pick up for your Dynasty team on the cheap. And for Dynasty, we'll talk about everybody throughout the season and off season that you can pick up on the cheap. And you just pick up who you want. But we're going to strategize around these players, look at different angles, look at their cost, look at what the market's saying on these players, daydream of what kind of deals we could do, and everything else. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. I'm helping you set your lineups with these videos. On Saturday, I'll drop the must-start video, and you're ask your questions in the comment section there, and I'll answer all of them. We're going deep on the waiver wire every single day. We're doing deep dives on all the players, and that's helping you in Dynasty, Redraft, pretty much in every format, even daily fantasy football. Click that button right now. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. We do not disappoint that guy. Don't miss out on that. However, we're going to start off with Sean Tucker. And he was a hot piece for a minute. And now things are slowing down with Sean Tucker in season. And if you're looking for some penny stocks right now that has some upside, that has flashed, here's a penny stock. A penny stock to look at to get cheap on Dynasty trades to where you can get him as a throw-in in a much larger deal. And he had that one blow-up game. Nothing ever since. However, after that blow-up game, we go from nothing to a little bit of something. We're starting to get crumbs. We're starting to get crumbs after the blow-up game. We've earned the crumbs. That is a good sign that they like him. They saw the talent on the field. We've heard that in press conferences. And why would we want to buy? Because we've seen the talent. We've seen what he could do. And we could definitely see the price increasing with more opportunity. We can definitely see another team investing in him. We could definitely see them start using him more if something happens to one of the other running backs. If something happens to one of the other running backs right now, right before the playoff time, you could really pony this guy off to a contending team and really get something back good at you. Maybe a good pick, a good prospect, whatever. Because they're going to try and win some money. And when people are FOMOing over money, you can rake them over with prospects when they start getting in an advantageous situation during that playoff time. And the market rose quickly on him. It rose quickly on him when he was getting that opportunity. However, it's starting to cool off. He was ranked around RB46 at the top. Now we're down to RB55. This is keep, trade, cut. And I would not look at this as a direct interpretation of how it will be valued in your league. However, it gives you market sentiment. And with market sentiment, you can broadly gauge how people are viewing Sean Tucker because everybody's viewing him in a different light compared to before the season. He was a forgotten player. Now he's in the back of your mind because you know if either Rachaad White or Bucky Irvin gets hurt, you know he's going to get opportunity. You know this team likes to use 2 running backs. And Sean Tucker has proven to be productive when given opportunity. So people are not forgetting about Sean Tucker. And there's a point in drafts, there's a point in trades where people are pushing the button where they were not pushing the button before. And you're seeing that right now in the adjusted rankings off keep, trade, cut here in their algorithms. So you're looking at this player, you're seeing like him versus Jaleel McLaughlin, Alexander Madison, Raheem Mostert. When you look at all 3 of those running backs for the long term, the upside to win your league, very hard to project for. Kendre Miller out for the season, and you're looking at him. It's been a rough, tough sledding for him to start his career. Sean Tucker flashed. Whatever you want to do with that one. This is all subjective. The other running backs I like as well. And then you look at the adjacent players. Early 3rd, 2026. So our objective, when we see that pick value, is try not to get that, but to get a lot cheaper than that. Now we're trying to gloss over the managers in our league, but that's what we're trying to do. That's the goal here, is to get players at a discount. So an early 3rd is what they're saying here, which sounds about right because I'm not going to give him away knowing that right now I'm in season, maybe I'm middle of the road, maybe I'm about to make the playoffs, and one of those running backs go down, I'm just not going to give him away. That doesn't make sense. However, someone might, They might just try and get something back in return. So maybe a late third, fourth, whatever. That's if you're interested. We're going to talk about everybody. I'm not glossing anybody up. But Sean Tucker is in a situation here where one injury away from being productive, and you're just looking at what he did at Syracuse. We're just trying to remind you. 1,400 yards as a sophomore. 12 touchdowns. The year after, barely over 1,000 yards. But we jumped up that receiving production. We got more targets, more routes ran. We were getting it done. And we can eat up yards in chunks. You can see that with the yards after the catch per reception. 16.1 as a freshman, 13.3 as a sophomore, 8.2, but the ADOT was up there. That means we were getting tighter targets downfield. Things are a little bit more sus. And you'll see that on the tape when you go back and look at that from Syracuse. Yards after contact, good. However, we saw what he could do on the field. We go undrafted. We had a heart condition. We had some time to ramp up and get better. We had to develop back into the Buccaneer system. But eventually we got our opportunity and we captured it. Not all players who have the situation, and the situations are always different, always capture the moment when they get their opportunity. Sometimes it's just that little bit of opportunity and they don't get it done. Sean Tucker did, and now they notice it, and we notice it, and his stock's going to stay at a certain point in the NFL to where he could see some opportunity later on down the road. And when we're looking at that opportunity, you could advantageously look at that in the future as a potential selling point. Like, you buy him right now for that cheap pick, and you know he's going to get an opportunity sooner or later due to injury, due to trade, due to something in the future where you can just peddle him off and get a return on investment. And if not, you barely spent anything for him. Now we're talking about Troy Franklin, our next guy, our next rookie that we're going to look at today. Sean Tucker's not a rookie, though, but he is the next rookie we're looking at is Troy Franklin, because there's some interesting facts and numbers that we're seeing from him. It's been up and down, as there's some downs in his profile right now as a rookie, and there's some upswings as well. The Denver Broncos are exceeding expectations. Bo Nix has been playing well, and we saw that in training camp. We saw him beat out those gatekeeper quarterbacks. Beating out the gatekeepers on the roster is always an indicator in training camp that something's on the horizon with that player. We saw that with Bo Nix. Troy Franklin kind of struggled beating out some gatekeepers on the roster. That is a red flag. However, red flags create discounts to where you can get those penny stocks. And the market is like, I don't know what to do with this guy. And he pumped up a little bit in the market when they saw he was getting targets, starting to run little routes, but we're slowing down. Wide receiver 67. Around that price range, that's pennies for a wide receiver. Pennies if you want to buy back in. I don't think the price has dipped much lower, though, compared to his stock after rookie drafts or during rookie drafts. That late second, mid-third pick that people are paying depending on league, I don't think it's dropped much lower than that. And you're looking at the players surrounded by him. Jerry Jeudy, Alec Pierce, Luke McCaffrey, Christian Kirk, Jalen Coker. So really, he's around that range where you're just taking stabs at wide receiver. But the wide receiver position is very diluted and should be, at this range, very cheap. Very cheap. I would want him a lot cheaper than what he was going in rookie drafts, and I would try to do that. Wherever he went in the rookie draft of your league, I would try and get him around or more cheaper. I would try and get a round and a half cheaper. So if he went late second, more likely early fourth-ish, it's probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. That's where I would try to do it. But I would do it probably not pick for player. I would probably do it with player getting some fantasy points that you know the value's not going to hold, that you can pawn off to get them back. That's what I would do. I don't think the pick for player is going to work. I would not accept that offer. However, you're seeing early third right there, and we're always trying to get cheaper than what that says because we want cheaper than market value. We kick the tires, see what's happened, but we don't go too far with it to where they ignore the rest of our deals. So we got to be strategic. I would say a player that's producing that we know the stock isn't going to hold. Troy Franklin's giving you a little bit of production, but we got a lot of downs. We got a lot of downs right there. However, when we're looking at the routes per game, we're averaging about 15 routes per game, and we're getting targeted on about 25% of her routes. 22% on the reel, but about 25% of her routes because Bo Nix likes to target him. Bo Nix likes to target him. That is what I think fascinating from the numbers here. On 1/4 of his routes, or almost 1/4 of his routes, Bo Nix will look his way. So if he earns more opportunity in the offense, a full off season, working out in the system, they traded up to get Troy Franklin. He fell in the draft, but they traded up to get him. He's a day 3 pick, but like a top tier day 3 pick with some time to develop in the season in the offense. Vele's been looking good. Different prospects, different players. He's got to just carve out his own role. You also got Courtland Sutton, who's not going to be there forever. Troy Franklin could be a guy that emerges in 2025. Could be a guy that just comes out, especially if they bring in another good wide receiver, and just to take the heat off of him. And that means wide receiver 1 potential may not be there for him, but a volatile wide receiver 3 with upside is something you could be potentially getting. Volatile wide receiver 3s in deeper dynasties, and that spike production is good. Definitely could see that, or we could emerge to more. But with what we're seeing here, we got 409 air yards, 45.4 air yards per game, and a team that plays small ball a little bit and just shoots it big to Courtland Sutton. I'll take that. The target share's low, but again, it's Courtland Sutton getting the targets, and that's about it, and it's just spread out underneath after that. And you're looking at what he did at work, and pretty much in the volume stats, just a one-year dandy, but we did do good in 2022 market share-wise. 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns last year. His ADOT, 12.8, 12.3, 13.9. So getting pushed downfield, he's a very cerebral player, very smart, finding the holes in his zone, good route runner, good at a lot of things. I just would not look at him as an exceptional prospect. I say he's very smart with how he plays the game, with reading things pre-snap, being in the right place. I would not consider him an exceptional prospect. That's probably why he fell in the draft. Like, you could probably find a handful of Franklins in every draft, every year, and you'll be okay. Of players around his talent from undrafted to the middle rounds, but there's no really like exceptional traits, just like good at everything. And there's so many good wide receivers out there, you kind of get lost in the mix. But Troy Franklin, drafted in the 4th round, the Broncos traded up for him. We got decent speed, we got the length to him, and now he's got a season in the offense. With him being a 4th round pick, that makes sense that he needs this season in the offense. Not a high volume passing offense to begin with. They're not going 5 wide or anything like that on the regular. This is a team that's very gritty. So this is something that's going to ease into more passing production as Bo Nix gets more established in the National Football League. Troy Franklin will get more established in the National Football League as well. Give him a little bit of time this season, but I would not be buying him at cost. I'd be looking at a discount. Erick All is on injured reserve. The tricky thing about that is usually you got an injured reserve spot, so he's a free square on the roster right now, but he's vastly talented. He has already flashed as a rookie tight end, playing next to Mike Gesicki even, and with this team pushing the pace on offense, with them showing their hand that they will target Mike Gesicki, if Erick All earns a larger role in this offense in the future, that could be big time for fantasy football. We're from Iowa, a big tight end producer, a tight end factory. That is something to look at here. Erick All's production, he gave you 3 tight end 2 weeks, even though the production was kind of laughable when you think about it in that aspect, but that's how the tight end position rolls. However, that is an indicator that he can be on the field as the tight end 2 and give you a little something with some scraps. Not great for fantasy scoring, but great for projecting out for the future if given more opportunities. The stock is dropping, tight end 26 in Dynasty Fantasy Football. The market's probably going to drop him a little bit more because he's an afterthought, and then it's going to shoot back up after January as people start looking back at the younger players. That being said, I would try to trade for him now and in between somewhere around Christmas, maybe earlier than that, as the Dynasty gamers who are starting to look back as they're out of it might start trying to get in. I would probably try to make that move pretty soon. Kick the tires. 4th round pick, 5th round pick, prospect you don't like, something like that. Something cheap. I'm not letting him go. But We know how Dynasty is, and we know thousands of leagues out there. Somebody will somewhere, but I will try to get him on the cheap. But we're looking at the adjacent players. He's up there in value, up there with Luke Musgrave. I think that's a very palatable cost. Down there with Michael Mayer. Jonnu Smith is very cheap if you're looking for a productive tight end right now. That's very underrated for the production for a Dynasty Fantasy Football. But we're looking at the adjacent players on the other side. Early third, mid-third, early fourth, somewhere around there. Cheaper than that. Always go cheaper, but that's a 2027 third. So we want to go very cheap on this because tight ends don't always hit. Tight ends are very volatile. They're up and down. They're streaky. They get a low average depth of target. They're pretty much big Wan'Dale Robinsons out there unless you're a top-tier tight end. So that being said, when you look at the position, just look at all tight ends outside like top 3 and 5 as just big old Wan'Dale Robinsons out there with less volume, and think about them in those regards where you need to score that touchdown or you need to be able to break loose on a certain play to get that fantasy production you want. Think about them as those volume wide receivers who get a low ADA is what I'm saying. Erick All here at the price. You're going to get him cheap. You're going to get him at a cheap cost, maybe even as a throw-in in a much larger deal. That is probably the best way to get him and acquire him for your fantasy team because you make that trade, you get him as an extra piece in the deal. That is the best way to do it. That's how I would do it. Probably around 2025 fourth or cheaper prospect you do not want anymore. A Jerome Ford, maybe, but I'm not really doing it right now. I know Jerome Ford's cooked. So you see that on the list. Raheem Mostert lost carries to Jalen Wright last week. If you're trying to get rid of him, you better do that now. And I'm just talking subjectively, just because I'm having fun right now. And then Aaron Rodgers, 1 QB value there. You do what you do in those. Those are always different from league to league. But the production wasn't really there in college. Tight end position. The tight end position is going to be the tight end position. Indicators here. ADOT rose up with Iowa to 8.7. Iowa's a tight end factory there. Yards per out ran, 2.62. Yards after the catch per reception, 6.1. He did have a 9.0 his final year at Michigan, but there was barely any counting stats there. However, Erick All, I'm trying to get him cheap. I'm trying to catch him at a discount. I'm trying to catch him to where he was going in rookie drafts last year, but I'm trying to be strategic about it. I'm trying to get one of those back-end players that I know the value is going to go down over the offseason and trying to just funnel them over to get Erick All. That is what I'm mostly going to do. Pick for players somewhere around that 4th round range where he was going in rookie drafts last year. He rose up a little bit. People are less likely to be liquid with him on the market. However, this is why we're going to talk about players all the time, because someone's going to be eventually liquid in your league, and now you got the video, you got the prospect analysis on him. I like Erick All, but he's also a tight end, and tight ends you got to watch for in fantasy football. Short ADOT players, but if you catch a good one on the cheap and they hit for it, can be huge for your team. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.